as great as he has been, nobody watches Mike Trout games besides Angels fans because we only tune in October, and he doesn't play there. It felt like this season, perhaps the Angels had finally found a winning combination. 10 games over 500 just a few weeks ago. But they have completely cratered. They lost 12 in a row. They have now dropped to 4 games under 500. And once again, the season is nearly over midway through the year. Now, I give Trout credit. He doesn't complain. He doesn't bellyache. Doesn't show frustration. In fact, he was asked the other day when he was mic'd up how he feels about the rumors that he should be unhappy, that they're wasting his career, the speculation that they're wasting Trout's career. And he didn't take the bait. He didn't care. He feels like they made good moves in the offseason. He felt like they had a good chance to win this offseason. So either Mike Trout is just above us all in terms of frustration level and taking things personally, feeling aggrieved. Maybe he's just better than all of us because all of us seem to feel underappreciated or undervalued or not supported enough in some way, shape, or form. And Mike Trout never lets on that he feels that way. Or winning just isn't that important. And I don't want to put that on Mike Trout. I see him as such a great player and such a great ambassador for the game. He never gets into trouble. He never says anything bad about his opponents. He never says anything bad about his manager or his organization. He's not a diva, not a me-first guy. He's not all over social media. I mean, he seems like a great dude, so I don't want to say he doesn't care about winning. But he must be way more optimistic and way better at not feeling aggrieved than anybody else on earth. Because somehow he's keeping the faith when there's little faith to be had, and he doesn't seem frustrated even though there's a million reasons to be frustrated. It really got me thinking. I wrote a piece for CBS over the weekend, or actually on Friday. It posted on Friday afternoon, about the top 5 legends that I could think of that were more improperly supported, more poorly supported than Mike Trout. Because at this point, 11 years into his career, it's fair to say the Angels have failed him. I think that's fair. And so here would be my list of 5 legends who were failed by their franchise, perhaps more than Mike Trout. I start with the number 5, and this guy might have been supported more than Mike Trout, even though he doesn't have a ring. Tony Gwynn. Gwynn was all-world for 15 to 20 years for the San Diego Padres and was just outrageous over the course of his career. A .338 batting average, flirted with 400 in 1994, had over 3,100 hits, but his teams made the playoffs only 3 times. He was a 15-time All-Star. And in those 15 years, 9 times the Padres had losing records. Imagine having a losing record with Tony Gwynn. But I can't put Tony Gwynn in terms of his support below Mike Trout because Gwynn did make 2 World Series. It's kind of crazy, but the Padres only made the playoffs 3 times in Gwynn's career. 2 of them ended in the World Series. Didn't win a championship. Lost in 84 to the iconic 84 Tigers. Lost in 98 to the iconic 98 Yankees. But other than that, I mean, boy, Gwynn was on so many bad Padres teams. He won the batting title 8 times and missed the playoffs 9 times. Come on. Number 4, also in baseball, I mentioned him before, Ernie Banks. 14-time All-Star. He won MVP twice for the Cubs, hit 512 home runs, never made the playoffs. Now, part of this is just haunting because over the bulk of Ernie Banks' career to make the playoffs. You had to make the World Series. And think about that. You won the National League, you went to the World Series. You won the American League, you went to the World Series. If you didn't, you came in second, no playoffs for you. And that was the bulk of his career. From 53 to 68, there were no divisions. And over the course of that time, the Cubs never even won 90 games. So he was stuck on bad teams his entire career when only the best team, the two best teams, made the playoffs. And in 69, his best chance to make the playoffs, as the Cubs had a very strong National League East season, the Black Cat runs across the dugout at Shea Stadium, and the Miracle Mets in 69 take the National League East and then take the World Series as well. Number 3, NFL, Dan Marino. The only reason Marino's not higher on this list is because he did make a Super Bowl in 84 and did go to back-to-back AFC championship games in 84 and 85, and the Dolphins made the playoffs a number of times. But the killer is that Marino, after making the Super Bowl in 84 and then hosting the AFC championship game in 85, and when the Patriots won that game on the road, the first time the Patriots had made a Super Bowl, Cinderella Pat's team that got smashed by the Super Bowl Shuffle Bears, the Dolphins missed the playoffs. Think about this. 4 straight years of Marino's prime. Imagine having Dan Marino in 86, 87, 88, and 89 and missing the playoffs every year. But the defense, the Killer Bees, had aged out and retired, and there was no defense for the Dolphins and no running attack for the Dolphins. Miami had Marino and Duper and Clayton and basically nothing else. Don Shula had basically failed Marino in 86, 87, 88, and 89, missing the playoffs in his prime. They finally get back to the postseason regularly in the 90s, but they lose regularly to the Bills. They're a good team, never a great team. And Shula just simply cannot fix the fact that Marino was carrying a roster almost by himself, that Marino starts breaking down with health issues, and they just don't have the ground game and the defense to help support him. Totally criminal. 1 Super Bowl from Dan Marino, and it happened in season 2. Number 2 on this list of great players that were failed by their teams, Ken Griffey Jr. Think about how great Jr. was, and then think about how rarely he played in the postseason. Of a decade of his prime, from 98 through 07, he missed the playoffs every year. Ken Griffey Jr., 10 years of his prime, missed the playoffs every single year. He was part of the 95 Mariners, which saved baseball in Seattle, and that was an incredible run. But in his 10 seasons with the Mariners, they had a losing record in 6 of the 10. I mean, imagine having Griffey, Edgar Martinez, Randy Johnson, and having a losing record 6 out of 10 years. I mean, Griffey hit 104 home runs over 2 seasons, 98 and 99. Both seasons, the Mariners had losing records. And then once he got to Cincinnati, the Reds were just as bad as the Mariners, worse. The Reds had a losing season every year he was in Cincy except for his first season. We never got to see Ken Griffey even in 1 World Series. But the number 1 sports legend, in my estimation, completely failed by his organization, was none other than Barry Sanders. Barry was perhaps the greatest running back of all time. And Barry was surrounded by Wayne Fontes and Bobby Ross as his coaches, and quarterbacks Rodney Peete, Eric Kramer, Charlie Batch, and Scott Mitchell. You are perhaps the greatest running back of all time. You are certainly the most dynamic and dazzling, exciting running back of all time. You're in a very short list with Jim Brown and Walter Payton, and your quarterbacks are Rodney Peete, Eric Kramer, Charlie Batch, and Scott Mitchell, and your head coaches are Wayne Fontes and Bobby Ross. Barry won one playoff game his entire career. One. And it happened in 1991. He played for nearly a decade after that and never even won a playoff game. Between 92 and 98, Barry had at least 1,300 yards in every season that he played a full season. He made the Pro Bowl every year. In that span, he had an 1,800-yard season and a 2,000-yard campaign. So for those seasons, 92 through 98, his prime, he ran for 1,300 yards every season, had 1,800 yards one year, and had 2K one year. The Lions were never better than 10-6 and never won a playoff game. What's more devastating than that? You got other good ones, legends that were failed by their franchises. This is not the same as lists of legends that didn't win a championship because people will cite Ewing and Barkley. Ewing and Barkley both played on teams regularly that were good enough to win the NBA championship. They just happened to run into Michael Jordan. That's not the same. The Knicks didn't really fail Ewing, and the Suns didn't fail Charles Barkley. They just didn't win. That's different. I'm talking about legends that were failed by their franchises, like Mike Trout is being done by the Angels.